Tell me the truth. Who am I? Are you really my mother? You shouldn't be holding that.
Rita Okonko's life looked perfect. 45, top nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Lagos, trusted by every doctor, every mother. 23 years of service, 23 years of praise. But tonight, everything was unraveling. Her phone had rung 3 hours ago, the call she had feared for 25 years. "Mommy, I need to talk. Something's wrong," her daughter Flora said, her voice tight. "I did a DNA test. Mommy, are you really my mother?" Rita's hand dropped the spoon. Jollof rice spilled on the stove, smoke curled in the air, acrid and sharp, like the secret she had buried for decades. "Flora, tests can be wrong," she started, her voice shaking. "Please, Mommy, just tell me the truth." The words hit her harder than any blow. The truth she had buried, the night that had destroyed everything, it was coming out. The front door opened. "I'm home," Flora's voice floated from the living room, confident, sharp, a lawyer now, not the tiny baby Rita had held 25 years ago. The baby who wasn't supposed to be hers. Rita wiped her trembling hands on her apron and walked toward the living room. "Whisper," she said. "I'd rather stand," Flora said, holding up her phone. "We share no DNA, none at all. So I'll ask again, am I your daughter?" Rita sank onto the sofa. The air felt too thick, too heavy. Her chest ached, her hands shook. "Yes," she whispered, "and no." Flora's face crumbled. "What does that mean?" Rita looked at her hands, the same hands that delivered hundreds of babies, that had been trusted by so many families, the hands that did one thing she could never undo. "It means," she said slowly, each word like swallowing glass, "I need to tell you what happened the night you were born." 25 years ago, Rita was younger, desperate and broken. She'd lost 4 pregnancies in 3 years. Each loss had chipped a bad her hope. Her husband Bernard tried to comfort her, but she could feel the disappointment in his eyes. His mother whispered cruel doubts. Then, a miracle. Rita got pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy held. 7 months of careful hope. A decorated nursery in soft yellow. Bernard smiled again, really smiled. But at 8 months, Dr. Thompson called her in. "Rita, the baby's heart rate is concerning," he said, his face grave. Fear froze her. She went home, prayed, paced, held her belly, hoping for a miracle. 3 weeks later, on a rainy September night, labor began. Pain tore through her body, physical agony, emotional terror. Bernard paced outside, silent prayers whispered into the corridor. Hours passed. Then, silence. Her baby hadn't cried. Rita's soul felt ripped from her chest. Dr. Thompson and the nurses worked frantically, and then, a weak, fragile mew. "She's alive," he said, but Rita saw the truth in his eyes. The baby was struggling. They let her hold her daughter for 30 seconds, tiny, purple grey, chest barely moving. The child she had prayed for, fought for, hoped for, was fragile, barely surviving. Across the ICU, another baby cried, pink, healthy, strong. Baby girl Adeleke. The name card told a story Rita couldn't ignore. What if? The thought whispered, then screamed. Over the next 2 days, Rita watched her own baby fight for life while Adeleke thrived. Bernard grew anxious. "The doctors aren't giving good news," he said. "Rita, we need to prepare ourselves." "No," she said fiercely. "She's going to survive." At 2 a.m., Dr. Thompson came again. "Rita, her lungs are failing. You should call your family. Say your goodbyes." Rita's heart shattered. She ran to the ICU. Her daughter lay grey, fragile, fading. Then she looked across the room. Adeleke, healthy, perfect, alive, waiting. The decision clawed at her mind. I could save myself. No one would know. Her hands shook as she moved toward the other incubator. 10 minutes later, she returned, carrying a pink, healthy baby. A baby who would live. The next morning, she learned her biological daughter had passed. Everyone mourned. No one suspected the truth. Rita's secret was born that night. Now, sitting in her living room, with Flora staring at her in horror, Rita felt every one of those 25 years pressing down on her chest. You took someone else's baby?" Flora's voice was barely audible. "You let them think their child was gone?" "Flora, please let me explain." "Explain?" Flora's voice rose, sharp and cutting. "Mommy, you stole me. You let my real mother think her baby was gone while you... She couldn't finish, her body shaking with sobs. Rita reached for her, but Flora jacked away as if Rita's touch burned. "Don't touch me. I don't even know who you are." "I'm your mother, Flora," Rita said desperately. "I raised you. I loved you. I gave you everything." "Everything except the truth," Flora shouted. "Everything except my real identity. Do you know what this means? There's a woman out there, my actual mother, who spent 25 years thinking her baby was gone, dead. How could you do that to someone? How could you? Rita's face crumpled. Because I was broken, Flora. I'd lost 4 babies. I watched my own child struggle to breathe, knowing she wouldn't survive. I was desperate and in pain, and I made a terrible choice. A terrible choice? Flora laughed, but there was no humor in it, only bitter, broken sound. Mommy, you didn't choose the wrong school or the wrong job. You stole a human being. You let another mother live in agony for 25 years. I know, Rita whispered. I know, and I've lived with that guilt every single day. Every birthday party, every graduation, every moment I looked at you, I thought about what I'd done. It's eating me alive. Good, Flora said coldly. You deserve that and more. The words hit Rita like a slap. But she couldn't argue. Flora was right. Flora wiped her eyes, her lawyer's mind already working through the implications. What happened to your biological child? The one who was struggling? Rita's voice broke. She passed away that night, before I made the switch. So you let them bury my real mother's baby while you kept me? Flora pressed her mouth to her mouth, looking like she might be sick. And the other mother, Sonia Adeleke, what happened to her? I don't know, Rita admitted. She'd been transferred to another hospital. By the time she was well enough to come back, the funeral had already happened. I avoided her. I couldn't face her. Eventually, I heard she'd moved away. I never saw her again. You never saw her again, Flora repeated slowly, because you were too much of a coward to face what you'd done. Rita flinched, but she said nothing. What could she say? Flora was right about everything. Flora paced the room, her mind clearly racing. I need to find her, Sonia Adeleke, my real mother. I need to know who I really am. Flora, please. Please what, Mommy? Please pretend I didn't just find out my entire life is built on someone else's tragedy? Flora's eyes were hard now, the shock giving way to anger. I'm a lawyer. I know what you did is a violation, not just morally, but legally. You could go to prison for this. Rita's blood ran cold. You'd report me? Flora looked at her for a long moment, and Rita saw 25 years of love warring with the horror of the truth in her daughter's eyes. I don't know, Flora finally said. Right now, I don't know anything except that I can't look at you. I can't be in this house. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Flora, wait, where are you going? To find my real mother, Flora said without turning around. To finally learn who I actually am. The door slammed, and Rita was alone in the house that suddenly felt like a prison. Flora spent the next 2 weeks like a woman possessed. She'd taken leave from her law firm, telling her boss she had a family emergency. That was the understatement of the century. Every morning, she sat at her laptop, searching for any trace of Sonia Adeleke. She'd started with hospital records, calling St. Mary's and asking questions, though they'd been reluctant to share information about a patient from 25 years ago. Data protection laws, the administrator had said apologetically. I'm sorry, but without proper authorization. Flora had wanted to scream. Instead, she thanked the woman and tried another approach. Social media had been more helpful. She'd found 3 Sonia Adelekes in Lagos, but none of them were the right age. Then she expanded her search to the entire country, then neighboring countries. On the 10th day, she'd found a Facebook profile that made her breath catch. Sonia Adeleke, age 48, living in Abuja. The profile picture showed a woman with kind eyes and a sad smile. The kind of smile that never quite reaches your eyes, Flora thought. The smile of someone who's known real grief. Flora had sent a message, her fingers trembling over the keyboard. Dear Mrs. Adeleke, my name is Flora Okonko. I was born at St. Mary's Hospital in Lagos 25 years ago. I have reason to believe you were a patient there around the same time. I need to speak with you urgently about something very important. Please, if you're the right person, contact me. She pressed send and then spent the next 3 hours pacing her apartment, unable to eat, unable to think about anything else. The reply came at midnight. Who is this? Why are you asking about St. Mary's? Flora's heart pounded as she typed back. Please, Mrs. Adeleke, I know this is strange, but I believe you had a baby girl at St. Mary's Hospital 25 years ago. I need to speak with you about what happened that night. The response took longer this time. Flora imagined this woman, possibly her real mother, staring at the message, her mind spinning with possibilities and fears. Finally, my baby passed away that night. This is very painful for me. Please don't contact me again. Flora's eyes filled with tears as she typed frantically. Mrs. Adeleke, please don't block me. I don't think your baby died that night. I think she's alive. I think I might be your daughter. The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Flora held her breath. What are you talking about? My daughter was buried 25 years ago. Flora's fingers flew across the keyboard, explaining everything. The DNA test, Rita's confession, the terrible switch that had been made. She typed until her vision blurred with tears, until her shoulders shook with sobs. Then she waited. 5 minutes passed, 10, 20. Just when Flora thought Sonia had blocked her, a new message appeared. I need time to process this. Give me your number. I'll call you tomorrow. Flora sent her number immediately, then sat in the darkness of her apartment, feeling like she was suspended between two lives, the one she'd known and the one she was about to discover. The next day dragged by like a month. Flora jumped every time her phone buzzed. She checked it obsessively, afraid she'd somehow miss the call that would change everything. At 4 p.m., her phone finally rang with an unknown number. Flora answered on the first ring. Hello? Is this Flora? Yes, Mrs. Adeleke? Call me Sonia, please. There was a long pause, filled only with the sound of breathing. I don't know what to say. I've thought about my daughter every day for 25 years. I visited her grave every year on her birthday, and now you are telling me... Her voice broke, and Flora felt tears streaming down her own face. I'm so sorry, Flora whispered. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. It's not your fault, Sonia said firmly. If what you've told me is true, then you're as much a victim as I am, more even. You've been raised by... She couldn't finish. By the woman who caused all this pain, Flora completed softly. I know. I can't look at her without feeling sick. She's the only mother I've ever known, but now I don't know what she is to me. She's a thief, Sonia said, and there was steel in her voice now. She stole my child and let me think she was gone. Do you know what that did to me? What it's done to me for 25 years? Flora listened as Sonia spoke, her words pouring out like water from a broken dam. She spoke of the depression that nearly ended her life, the marriage that collapsed under the weight of grief, the career she had abandoned, the decades of therapy and medication, and empty nurseries that should have been filled with birthday parties and scraped knees and homework and laughter. I'm so sorry, Flora said again, inadequate words for incomprehensible pain. I want to meet you, Sonia said suddenly. I need to see you, to know if you are really mine. Flora's heart leapt. Yes, I want that too. But first, Sonia's voice hardened. I want to confront the woman who did this, Rita Okonkwo. I want to look her in the eye and ask her how she could do something so cruel. 3 days later, Rita stood in her living room, watching two women walk up her pathway. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. Flora had called an hour ago. We're coming over, Mommy, me and Sonia Adeleke. You need to face what you've done. Now, as Rita opened the door, she found herself looking at a woman who could have been her reflection in an alternate universe. Someone marked by the same pain, but worn differently. Sonia Adeleke stood on Rita's doorstep, her eyes blazing with 25 years of grief and rage. She was thin, her hair streaked with grey despite being only 48. But her eyes, those eyes held a strength that came from surviving the unsurvivable. So, you're the woman who destroyed my life, Sonia said quietly. Rita felt her knees weaken. Sonia, Don't, Sonia held up her hand. Don't say my name like we're friends, like you have any right to speak to me at all. They moved into the living room, the air thick with tension. Flora stood between them, her face pale and drawn. Tell her, Flora said to Rita. Tell her everything. She deserves to hear it from you. So Rita told the story again, every painful detail. The pregnancies she'd lost, the daughter born struggling, the moment of desperation when she made the choice that ruined 3 lives. I watched my biological daughter struggle for 2 days, Rita said, her voice breaking. I knew she wasn't going to make it. And your daughter, Flora, she was so healthy, so strong. You'd been transferred away. I thought no one would know. I thought I could give Flora a good life, that somehow that would make up for what? Sonia's voice was like ice. For stealing my child? For letting me bury a DB that wasn't mine? For the 25 years I've spent in therapy, on medication, unable to have another child because the trauma destroyed my marriage and my body? Rita bowed her head. There is no making up for it. I know that. You are right. There isn't. The silence stretched between them like an ocean. Finally, Sonia turned to Flora. I want you to know something. This is not your fault. None of this is your burden to carry. Flora's eyes filled with tears. I feel like I'm split in two. She raised me, she gestured to Rita, but you're my mother. I don't know who I am anymore. Sonia stepped forward and took Flora's hands. It was the first time they touched, and both women felt a jolt, not of recognition exactly, but of something deeper, a connection that had always been there, buried under years of lies. You're Flora, Sonia said gently. That's who you are. You're the daughter I mourned, the child I never stopped loving even when I thought you were gone. And you're also the woman Rita raised. I can't erase 25 years of your life, and I wouldn't want to. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your future. Flora broke down then, sobbing in a way she hadn't since she'd learned the truth. Sonia held her, this stranger who was her mother, and cried with her. Rita watched from across the room, her own tears falling silently. She'd lost Flora. Maybe not physically, but she'd lost her daughter's trust, her respect, her love. That was the price of her sin. What happens now? Rita asked quietly. Sonia looked at her with eyes that held no forgiveness, but also no hatred. It's up to Flora, and partially up to the authorities. What you did was a violation of me, of Flora, of every law and moral code that exists. I know, Rita whispered. Flora pulled away from Sonia, wiping her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was steady, the voice of the lawyer she'd become, not the broken daughter she felt like. I've thought about this constantly, about justice and punishment and what's right. Part of me wants to see you face consequences for what you've done. Rita nodded, accepting her fate. But another part of me, Flora continued, knows that sending you to prison won't give Sonia back the 25 years she lost. It won't erase my confusion or pain. It won't fix anything. What are you saying? Sonia asked. Flora took a deep breath. I'm saying that I want us, all three of us, to work with a counselor, someone who can help us navigate this impossible situation. Sonia, you deserve to have a relationship with me if that's what you want. And Rita, she paused, looking at the woman who'd raised her. I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, but I don't want revenge either. I just want truth and healing, however that looks. Sonia was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. If that's what you want, I'll try. Not for her, she gestured to Rita, but for you, for us. Rita fell to her knees, sobbing. Thank you, thank you. I don't deserve this mercy. You are right, Sonia said firmly. You don't, so don't waste it. 3 years later, Flora stood in a garden, surrounded by flowers and two mothers. Rita stood to her left, grey-haired now, worn down by guilt, but still present. She'd sold her house and donated most of the proceeds to a foundation for mothers who'd lost children. A small attempt at redemption that would never be enough, but something. Sonia stood to her right, stronger than she'd been 3 years ago. Therapy and reconnecting with Flora had given her something to live for again. She'd even started dating someone, a kind man who understood her scars. And Flora stood between them, preparing to marry Lawrence, a man who'd seen her through the hardest period of her life and loved her anyway. You both get to walk me down the aisle, Flora had told them months ago. Because like it or not, you're both my mothers. One by biology, one by choice. A choice that was wrong and cruel, but that nonetheless shaped who I am. As they walked together toward Lawrence, who waited with tears in his eyes, Flora felt the weight of her complicated truth, but also the freedom of living it openly. The story wasn't a neat one. Rita would carry her guilt forever, and rightly so. Sonia would always have scars from the years stolen from her. Flora would always feel caught between two worlds. But they were all choosing to move forward, not forgetting, never forgetting, but learning to live with truth instead of lies. Are you happy? Sonia whispered to Flora as they reached the altar. Flora looked at Lawrence, then at the small group of friends and family who'd supported her through everything, then back at her two mothers, one who stole her, one who lost her, both now part of her story. I'm getting there, Flora said honestly, one day at a time. And that, they all realized, was the best any of them could hope for. Not perfect healing, but honest healing. Not erasure of the past, but learning to build a future despite it. If someone's secret is causing you pain, remember, the truth may hurt, but it also sets you free to build something real. What would you do in Flora's situation? Would you forgive the person who raised you, or choose justice for your biological mother? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, subscribe to our channel for more powerful African folk tales every week. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter.